want to start with Sam Darnold, the quarterback who, through 3 or 4 games was kind of this dark horse MVP candidate. Sounds like he's not, by the way, a candidate for comeback player of the year. He can't win comeback player of the year. They've changed the rules on that, but come back to earth a little bit since halftime of the Green Bay game. What are you seeing on the film?
Yeah, it was funny to read that from one of the AP writers who mentioned that Darnold can't win comeback player of the year because you have to come back from an illness or something that took you off the field, limited your playing time. And people wanted to point out that playing for the Jets and the Panthers should be considered an illness.
He had mono like 5 years ago. Doesn't that count?
It should. Yeah, I think obviously the Jets game wasn't his best effort. The Jets are very good. So it's to be expected a little bit. The Jets rank first in yards per play. We talked about that after the game. But when you go back and just kind of dug into his film from that game, well, first of all, it was noteworthy that Kevin O'Connell came out afterward and felt the need to say Tuesday that there were opportunities in the passing game. And this was kind of to a question, if I remember correctly, about Aaron Jones. And he kind of just delved into, well, we should have been able to withstand that injury better because there were opportunities in the passing game. And so he brought that up on his own, and he wanted to make that point that Sam Darnold can play better. And he also wanted to say that it's an all-11 thing and we need to do all the things better. But watching it back, Darnold missed opportunities down the field that were there. And I wonder if there was an impact from the interior pressure they were facing, if there was an impact from the early hit that he took in the midsection that left him maybe wincing a little bit as that pressure came later in the game. And also the Jets have really good corners. Sauce Gardner and DJ Reed are very good. They don't give you big windows to throw into. And Darnold's a guy who's kind of got accustomed to early in the season of having some pretty open windows that are schemed open for him, at least early in those wins. So I think Darnold just didn't respond well to the pressures of that Jets defense. And that's kind of why it was shocking to see Robert Saleh get fired, because it wasn't the defense that was bad for the New York Jets. It was Nathaniel Hackett. It was the offense. It was Rodgers. It's their lack of a run game. Breece Hall doing nothing this season so far. So obviously the Vikings did enough to win, but they only scored, 10 points on offense or whatever it ended up being. So it wasn't a whole lot. And also when you saw some of the mistakes, the turnover worthy plays for Darnold, that's a very worthy number to kind of keep track of. And Pro Football Focus does that. And he's had 7 turnover worthy plays the last 2 weeks, I believe, after having just 4 those first 3 games. And so it's a rate that you've seen tick up. It ticked up in Green Bay as well. They just built such a lead there that they didn't need to worry about it too much. So this is the inconsistency that you're kind of concerned with, and also with Darnold. And then when you see them face these better defenses that you're going to face in the postseason, when you want them to be great, can he play that kind of perfect, clean football that they need? Because as much as we love Will Reichert, the rookie kicker, as much as we love this defense, they're not always going to be perfect. And you're going to need the offense to kind of pull its weight, and you need Darnold to do the same.
Well, especially if and when they ever trail in a game this season. We keep waiting for it. They trailed 3-0 in the first game of the year. They haven't trailed since, and those mistakes get magnified if you're trying to come back in a game. If you're having to throw more often, and they threw plenty against the Jets, and watching that game, it felt like there wasn't a whole lot there, but I think there were probably 2 or 3 big plays where they could have, a better throw from Darnold or a different decision from Darnold. It just didn't feel like they were able to scheme guys open the same that they had been in previous weeks. And that felt like a bigger difference to me than throws that Darnold was missing.
Yeah, and O'Connell said it was a little bit of everything. He pointed out that it's not just the big throws down the field that were missed. It was sometimes he was hunting that so much that he missed the open opportunity underneath. And by the time he looked to that, the pressure was there. Or he was making a different decision with the football. So sometimes he just wasn't taking what the defense gave him. It was just that overall, which maybe be part of the, not alarming, because obviously they won and he, didn't make too many mistakes, but it's part of the issue with Darnold where he's not this kind of molded product at this point where you can say he's going to revert back to the norm, which for Kirk Cousins was a pretty standard operating procedure. For Darnold, he's still forming his standard operating procedure. He went through the preseason this summer just need to get kind of into the game plan flow of preparing for a week and being the guy. And not to say he didn't have 50 starts before this, because he did, but it wasn't in a winning organization. It wasn't done in a professional way that maybe should have been done, or finely tuned or finely crafted. So Darnold's not a finished product, and not to say that any quarterback is, but he's more raw clay than I think people realize with him being a 7th-year guy. And so for him then to fall back to what they need to hammer, the fundamentals with him. They need to hammer some of the basics with him. And those are the things I expect they're going to be doing this week, and try to make sure that whatever bad player mistakes don't compound into ruining what you, excuse me, what they were already doing well.
I think you're right, because the thing he seemed like he's been doing well this season that he's talked about and that he's maybe not done as well in previous stops is just taking what's given to him, right? Like not trying to do too much, realizing that sometimes it's just, get the ball out, let someone make a play, move on to the next one. He's done a good job of mixing that in with obviously 97-yard touchdown passes, things like that. But yeah, I think ultimately you don't want Sam Darnold in a mode where he thinks he has to do too much. And it kind of seemed like if there was something he was reverting back to against the Jets, it was that. That's something they need to catch going forward. Because again, Detroit's up next. Detroit's 4-1. I mean, they're playing really well. This whole division is loaded. My goodness, Andrew. Like all 4 of these teams have the 4 best point differentials in the league. Nobody's worse than 4-2. I mean, this is not 2022 where they're going to run away and hide with the division title in week 12 or 13.
Yeah, and there's some good defense being played, don't get me wrong, but it's not the black and blue division. It's Detroit pouring on the points against Dallas. It's Green Bay airing it out with a bunch of touchdowns. It's Caleb Williams finding his footing and doing the same thing, airing it out. They should all be very good quarterbacks at various stages of their careers. And when they're playing as well as they did Sunday, when the Vikings got to sit at home and watch, it can be a little intimidating. Maybe not so much when you have Brian Flores and the way this Vikings defense is. And that's why this Sunday against the Lions is going to be so fun and telling for where these two teams are at and where the Vikings are at, because Detroit's going to come into a very tough environment in US Bank Stadium, where the Vikings defense has played its best football with that noise in that environment. But like you said, Darnold has not trailed in a game yet really meaningful, right, where he felt the pressure. And so against Detroit, they can put you in a hole and they can kind of grind down games and obviously run the ball as well as anybody knows that we've seen. So I think that's where this Sunday is going to be very fun to watch, and where this division is going to be most entertaining, because we saw that game at Lambeau Field and it was not a 28-0 game. It felt much more like Green Bay won the second half, Vikings won the first half. Vikings just got to win that game.
On the uptrend, Jonathan Greenard has been everything they could have hoped for through 5 games. He had the huge game, obviously, against the Texans, but his impact has been pretty much universal. And I think he had pressure that led to at least one of those Rodgers interceptions in London. Sometimes it doesn't show up in the sack totals. His pressure rate, though, is off the charts.
It is. He's been amazing. And he's somebody that it's crazy that Andrew Van Ginkel is getting all the attention as somebody who's kind of his own underrated defender, but the touchdowns, obviously deservedly so. But Greenard has been awesome. He only Aiden Hutchinson entering last week's games, the Lions star edge rusher who got hurt on Sunday, and that's a huge loss for them. Yeah. He was the only guy who had more pressures than Greenard through 5 weeks, according to Pro Football Focus. And that's huge. This guy is constantly affecting the quarterback. He's rushing throws. He's forcing them into turnovers like we saw at times. Even though he's not getting the touchdowns or all of the sacks, this guy can win one-on-one so quickly. And he has the Everson Griffin style get off of the football that Vikings fans will know, where it's just so fast and so timely that offensive linemen who are now getting pushed to the line of scrimmage, tackles are not allowed to line back as far as they used to. You talk to defenders, that's huge for them. They love that. They're like, yeah, force them to come up quicker. So then they are more thinking of how fast they have to drop back for the speed rush. The more we get in their head, the more we can counter with inside moves, power moves, all of those things. And Greenard is just winning with all of that. The guy has a deep tool bag. He can go and do anything. It's incredible what he built in 4 years at Houston through 4 different coaching staffs, what he kind of molded himself into. Because when I sat down with him earlier this season and talked to him, I asked just kind of the standard question, like, who are your mentors? Who are the guys that you really looked up to and learned from? And he didn't have a great answer. He said it's just kind of been piecemeal from everybody. And maybe that's part of why he is the way he is, of like, he's kind of taking little bits and pieces of so many different people, from J.J. Watt when he was a rookie all the way up until a rookie in Will Anderson coming in out of Alabama as an early round pick and kind of showing him things that he learned at Alabama. So I think this guy has been just incredible. He's been worth every penny for them. He doesn't get talked about enough, and he's earning the highest paid salary average annual per year on this defense at $19 million. It is a lot of money, but he's kind of a fitting leader for that moniker because he doesn't care that he's not getting the sack numbers. He doesn't care if he doesn't make a Pro Bowl. This guy just goes out there and does everything they ask him to do.